So I opened the Politico today doing show prep, and there are three stories. I want to read you first the headlines. Here's headline one. This was the lead story at Politico this morning. An evangelical battle of the generations to embrace Trump or not. It's about Liberty University. Kicks off. The starting point is Liberty University. Headline number two, right underneath that one. Put Trump on the ballot in 2022? No thanks, some Democrats say. Headline number three, Republicans fear Trump will lead to a lost generation of talent. Donald Trump lives rent-free in the media's head. He will not be on the ballot in 2022, and the media is obsessed with him and the future of the GOP. And a lot of it, you do have to understand, is through the lens of those who never liked him to begin with, wish he would go away, want nothing to do with him, and condemn him for everything anyway. Now, I want to focus not on the Liberty University and evangelical story, but on these two stories. Here's the first. Republicans fear Trump will lead to a lost generation of talent. In conversations with more than 20 lawmakers, ex-lawmakers, top advisors, and aides, a common concern has emerged that a host of national and statewide Republicans are either leaving office or may not choose to pursue it for fear they can't survive politically in the current GOP. The worry, these Republicans say, is that the party is embracing personality over policy, and that it is short-sighted to align with Trump, who lost the general election and continues to alienate large swaths of the voting public with his grievances and false claims that the 2020 election was stolen. Trump has driven sitting GOP lawmakers and political aspirants into early retirement ever since he burst onto the scene, but there was hope that things would change after his election loss. Instead, his influence over the GOP appears to be as solid as ever. That's the first article to focus on. And now there's this. Put Trump on the ballot in 2022? No thanks, say some Dems. Trump is a Republican problem and a Republican cancer that they need to cut out of their party, Representative Stephanie Murphy says. But that's their problem. As Donald Trump cannonballs back into national headlines, more scandal-ridden than ever. Aha, don't you like the editorial in the start of the sentence? It turns out the Republicans aren't the only ones who don't want to fixate on the former president. Many House Democrats feel the same way. With their fragile House majority on the line, many Democrats are imploring their colleagues not to take the Trump bait after last November's referendum on the ex-president ended up costing their party a dozen seats. Instead, those Democrats are eager to deploy a policy-heavy playbook to help stave off a potential midterm whipping and are careful to avoid putting Trumpism on the ballot next November, too. The former president is now a private citizen, and it appears our justice system is handling whatever potential misdeeds he may or may not have committed, said Representative Stephanie Murphy, Democrat of Florida, among roughly 36 endangered Democrats who will need to win in order for their party to keep the House. Now, let's just pause one moment, please. The Politico has these stories literally sitting next to each other today. One says the Republican Party leaders are fretful of Donald Trump's continued hold on the party, and the other starts with this sentence. It turns out the Republicans aren't the only ones who don't want to fixate on the former president. So which is it? Which is it? Maybe it's the media that's fixated on Donald Trump. Listen, the man was in charge of the Republican Party and to a degree still is. He was the elected president of the United States of America. He could run again. And he needs to at least keep up the idea of running to have clout in 2022 before Republicans move on to other things. But no man save Jesus Christ himself is immortal, or at least will live on this planet forever. Donald Trump is not going to live forever. And, you know, the Democratic Party went through years of being Barack Obama's party more than it was the Democratic Party. These things happen to parties. There are Republicans who are fretful that the best and the brightest are leaving because of Donald Trump. But if they can't survive and navigate the waters of Donald Trump, are they the best and the brightest in the GOP? Essentially, what the lament is that people who don't like Donald Trump are leaving the Republican Party or can't get elected. I have to assure you of something. It is a fact not mentioned in these reports. There are a vast array of elected Republicans who hate Donald Trump. You know it and I know it. And somehow they've been able to convince the voters that they are Donald Trump's best friend. They don't like him, but they certainly give lip service to him. The idea that the Republican Party can't move forward and is losing all sorts of smart people. Now, there are some. I know some younger, mostly men in the Republican Party, although some women too, who have gotten out of politics right now because of the Trump phenomenon. They don't particularly like it, or they're helping candidates they don't necessarily think can win. But if you actually pay attention to what the voters are doing around the country in special elections, they have gone for candidates who are supportive of Donald Trump, but are not the most Trumpy of the candidates. And that in and of itself, I think, is pretty telling that when you look at the Republican Party around the country, the voters, not the politicians, not the political consultants, not the elite, not the media, the voters, when asked to pick candidates in primaries or special elections, are picking Republican candidates who are superficially pro-Trump, but also stand for something themselves. But let's be real here. One of these concerns is that your focus, the party, this is a quote from the party, the worry, these Republicans say, is the party is embracing personality over policy, and that it is short-sighted to align with Trump, who lost the general election. Now, he won last time, and he came within 43,000 votes of winning this time. But pay attention beneath the Donald Trump line on the ticket. What happened? The GOP did really, really well. They almost took back the House of Representatives. They would have held the Senate, but for Republicans in Georgia getting cold feet, not showing up at the polls. The GOP did pretty well. And by the way, they did it with policy, supporting police, pushing back against the culture. And this is ultimately what all of this is about, is a lot of these voters, a lot of these Republican consultants, they find the culture war stuff gross. They are totally on board progressive, secular lifestyles. They are totally on board secular leftism. They want fiscal conservatism at a time fiscal conservatism is kind of a dead end for the GOP. But they're okay with social liberalism. Some of them, they're nominally pro-choice, but there's an ick factor for them. Here comes Donald Trump and his culture warriors, and they're fighting the left on cultural issues. And these guys are like, this is kind of gross. I'm okay with drag queen story time. But these Republican consultants who lament it, that's really their concern here. Yes, there is a personality. There is a cult of personality within the GOP. We used to laugh at the Democrats and say they were all the cult of personality, but it's the GOP too. But, for years, the Republicans ran on repealing Obamacare, and these very same Republicans, I suspect, who are the ones lamenting we're not doing policy, they're the ones who scuttled the effort to get rid of Obamacare. We've been running for years on limited government, and I suspect these are the very same Republicans who lamented when we actually did hold the budget hostage until we got sequestration. So the policies that they seem to want to run on are the ones they like to run on but never actually implement, so why even have them to begin with? But more than that, it's also, again, notable that this story literally is right next door on the same front page of Politico to one that says the Republicans aren't even talking about Trump on the campaign trail, and the Democrats don't want to either. So which is it? Probably a little of both, but it's not nearly as exciting when you say it that way.